Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And mark it on your calendars. I think the Steven Universe era of animation is officially over. And I'm going to tell you why I think that is. Matt Braley, who is the showrunner of Amphibia, made the announcement that a movie he was working on with Rebecca Sugar, and again, these are two big names in that era of animation, got canceled by Sony because Sony said they were not commercial enough to produce.
Mm-hmm. And now the animation world's all having meltdown.
Yes. So we're going to talk about this because this is yet another indication that even though these people are absolutely going to probably work in the industry for a while, the appetite to greenlight a lot of the content that they produce has waned. And I blame anime for sure. I mean, Sony has Demon Slayer, and they also have K-pop Demon Hunters, and they're looking at those and they're like, yeah, we can make a lot of money on animation, just not that animation, not from you guys.
And it's kind of sad though because when you look at the art, it's beautiful. I'm not going to say it isn't. The art is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a good looking movie. I mean, or at least the concept art is good, but I think there's more going on here than what we're being told. I am hearing some rumblings back channel that some of these studios are getting cold feet, greenlighting projects by people that have been so closely associated with activism. And both Braley and Sugar have been very closely associated with activism. And there's been a lot of talk about that. I mean, it even went to Washington that Netflix was getting grilled on all the ideology in their cartoons. And they're walking stuff back. They're, some of the shows are being pulled. Some of them have already been canceled. Now, in the case of She-Ra was, always supposed to be canceled.
Yeah, I think the contract ran out, like what they were supposed to have it on there for.
But notice what Mattel's not doing. Mattel's not making more Netflix She-Ra anything.
No, because there's no demand for it. And the reason I think they're not putting out the DVDs is because they don't think there's enough demand for it.
Yes.
Even though I do see people's points that, if you're going to take the show off the air, could you at least give them the complete series so they can buy it? Which I honestly, people should have the right to buy that if they want to. And I don't disagree with them. But if they're not, it just tells me that there's a rights issue or not enough interest or yes.
Yeah, I think it's a yes in that case. It's interesting too, because one of the shows, weirdly enough, which, I mean, this wasn't on my radar, one of the shows that came up during this whole, crackdown on, Netflix ideology, and we could debate that, whether it was overkill or not, but Strawberry Shortcake. So that the newer Strawberry Shortcake reboot they just did like 3 or 4 years ago got dragged into the conversation because they had a character on there that was like a trans berry or something.
Yes.
And people are like, why are you putting this in Strawberry Shortcake?
They made sure you knew. It wasn't like, they weren't very clear about it or whatever. No, they made sure that they told you exactly what that meant multiple times.
Yes. And yeah, it was like there was no missing it. There was no like, because I was watching the other day, I just started autoplaying on YouTube. I was watching Pee-wee's Playhouse, and Pee-wee's Playhouse, in retrospect, was a pretty gay show. I mean, it really was.
Oh, just surprised.
Yeah, it's like I just didn't notice when I was a kid because a lot of the jokes and stuff went over my head. But I'm watching it now and I'm like, oh shit, they would have a field day with Pee-wee's Playhouse. I mean, there's so many. Like they even had Cowboy Curtis was like they had a slumber party and he was like, oh, I don't sleep in pajamas, Pee-wee. I sleep in the nude outside. And Pee-wee's like, I'm like, oh my god, yeah, that would not fly. I love Pee-wee's Playhouse, but it wouldn't fly today. But this stuff is like so in your face. There's no missing it at all. But that was only a couple of years ago. They're already rebooting Strawberry Shortcake, and they're going back to the 80s design or something similar to it.
Yeah, but it's CGI. People are kind of like, because they're worried it's going to be like AI and crap. But yeah, but they're at least going back to the original.
And you go to Five Below, and it's all classic.
Oh, tons of
classic Strawberry Shortcake
stuff. They have Milo Pony stuff too, but tons of shortcake.
So what happened? Well, you didn't see any toys or anything for that 2021 reboot, which would have been greenlit probably in 2018, which is when it was peak, Steven Universe era. That's what we're going to call it, of animation. And it landed with a thud. And now we're going back to basics. And I think that's the bigger issue. The bigger thing that's going on right now is the studios are looking at profit and they're looking at people shooting their mouths off, and a lot of people who are controlling the industry in the 2010s, I don't think are going to be working.
No.
And I'm not like, look, I'm not sitting here being like, I hope these people will get fired and they live in a cardboard box. Hell no. I'm just saying the studios are over the activist cartoons. They're done with it.
I think that's what this is about. It's more about the activism from the people behind the show, in my opinion, than it is about the show necessarily, because the art is beautiful. Yeah. And when you read what it's about, I'm like, well, that actually isn't a bad story. But so I have to wonder, and from what you're hearing back channel, if it wasn't behaviors around people involved with the show more so than the show itself. Yeah,
I've heard from multiple people that there's a lot of discussion around certain individuals in the animation scene, and that they're difficult to work with, and that the studios are concerned about their online behavior.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't keep their mouth shut.
They're going to say yes.
Yeah.
So that's probably the bigger story, and I think if these people do get gone from the industry, it's not necessarily a talent thing. It's going to be like all you had to do is keep your head down and make your cartoons and make the studio money, and you couldn't do that, right? Mm-hmm. And that is the biggest cardinal sin in Hollywood. Like, Hollywood will work with people that maybe have the wrong politics until they get called out. But if they think it's going to affect their bottom line, then they will toss those people overboard. And it's the same way I think activism now is going to be looked at that way by some studio heads. Are going to be like, yeah, this is anti-money. We're not doing this. So let's talk about it. Oh my God, we're really into it. So before we get to it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, you'll get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo.
So yeah, even Variety picked it up. Sony scraps Thai-inspired animated movie after 2 years of development. Director says it was judged as not commercial enough to produce. Well, that tells me they're looking at it and they're like, yeah, the audience is going to be very niche.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, they didn't know K-pop Demon Hunters was going to do well either, and it did incredibly well. And they still are canceling this. Yeah. I'm like, because they didn't know it was going to do well, and it did well because it was general. I think it was general audiences and things. But the fact that, their takeaway isn't let's do more of that kind of stuff, you'd think that would be the takeaway. They're supposedly saying, no, we're not going to move forward on this. It makes you wonder why. So it has to be not because of the art or because of the being, Thai based or whatever. It's got to be other reasons, because they would be all in on it, you would think, given the way K-pop Demon Hunters went.
Yeah, so this is Variety. Then we'll go out to Cartoon Brew. They said Braley, a writer on Cartoon Network's Steven Universe and storyboard artist on Mitchells vs. Machines, which I actually like that.
That's good. Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I heard it was nothing but good things.
Doesn't specify the studio in his lengthy Instagram post detailing the situation. However, Sony Pictures Animation announced in 2023 that there was a movie from him and Rebecca Sugar, who was the showrunner on Steven Universe. At the very start of 2025, I received the unfortunate news the movie I'd been working on for 2+ years at a major animation studio would not be moving forward.
So we're talking last year, the beginning of last year.
Yeah, so they knew back then, I think.
Probably couldn't say anything till his NDA was up or something.
Well, that's what I think is going on, and I'm going to tell you, this is about the same time we saw a bunch of projects get canceled, a bunch of Netflix shows get canceled, a bunch of Cartoon Network shows get canceled. Warner Brothers, I mean, they were on the chopping block anyway, but they were canceling a bunch of stuff all over the place.
Okay, so they didn't cancel K-pop Demon Hunters because it was already done and it was too far along to cancel. They probably would have canceled it too. It had they been not as far along, is what I'm thinking. So that's why they're not going on, because you'd think they go all in on this given the way K-pop Demon Hunters performed, and they're not. Now it makes sense because this one wasn't as far along, so they could stop it. Where K-pop Demon Hunters, they already did it, so you might as well put it out at this point.
Yeah, I think they knew there was probably more of an appetite for K-pop Demon Hunters. Not as big. I mean, it was a huge success, and they couldn't have predicted that. But I think they knew that at least that was more commercially viable because K-pop is big. Demon hunting is big. You put the two together, it's you got something. Just they didn't know how well it was going to do. But this tells me that they were already looking to get rid of stuff, and this would have been after the Demon Slayer movies came out and made ridiculous money. So I'm super proud of the lovely script Rebecca Sugar and I wrote together, and am disappointed that you will all likely never get to see the film. I had a really supportive development team, but the film was judged as not commercial enough to produce. So at least with K-pop Demon Hunters, it got produced.
Well, no, I think if you're going back to early 2025, K-pop Demon Hunters came out last summer. So I don't think it was to a place. I think if it had been like a year sooner, it would have got canceled too.
I think they were canceling cartoons because they were starting to look, the studios are realizing that they get more bang for the buck from the stuff Japan's already producing, and they don't have to deal with these people.
Maybe, but I'm just like, since we're knowing it's the start of 2025, my thought is K-pop Demon Hunters was pretty much ready to go. It was going out in a few months. He said very start 2025, so I'm assuming January, February. K-pop Demon Hunters came out. What was it, like the summer, June or something like that? Or
yeah, I think it was summer.
It was in the summer. And at that point, it was already finished. Theirs, they were just still working on it. They weren't even doing this stuff. They were getting ready to go. They hadn't gone into full production yet. So they could cancel this one. They couldn't cancel the other one as easily. And they may regret that now, but they stuck by
I don't think they do. I'm just saying. I'm hearing things from different parts of. I'm just saying. I think this was an intentional. Like they had to weigh the pros and the cons. And I mean, it's a good looking movie. I mean,
the art's
or at least the art is. But I think that we're going to see a definite shift in the kind of content that's going to be produced, and it's not going to be from the Steven Universe era of. And again, I know I'm singling out Steven Universe, but it's Steven Universe to me is the show that is the most indicative of that era of cartoons, right? Like it was designed specifically for the message, which look, if it's
the Princesses of Power was the same thing. It was She-Ra designed, it was a
Steven Universe style. Yeah.
On a story that was all about message. Which did not go well with people.
Right. And I think we're starting to see the crap, like Cartoon Network. What are they rerunning endlessly? It's Teen Titans Go. It's not Steven Universe. It's not these other shows. Disney Channel's in decline. So basically, a lot of these shows, my understanding is most of these shows were subsidized by cable. They were subsidized by cable subscriptions, and they were willing to take a chance on these kind of shows that really were not, let's be honest, most of them were not for kids. They're for adults trying to like go back in time and make a show for them. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Which is fine. You got some issues.
Well, they would tell you that all the time.
And they tell you that. That's the thing. I'm not saying anything that they haven't said themselves, which is why we're seeing all these prom episodes and, coming out stories and all this stuff. Is like, okay, you got some issues you got to work through. I get it. But you're spending millions of dollars of the studio's money as a therapy session. And that's what a lot of these shows wound up being. And they were subsidized. They were subsidized by cable subscriptions that they never thought would end. And now that era of TV is over. And now it's basically whatever you produce has to pay for itself. And it's not going to be the case. It's just not. Steven Universe, my understanding still is, for all the talk of like Steven Universe is this huge deal. No, my understanding was the actual audience for Steven Universe was relatively small. And, the only way that it got the numbers that, if anybody was bragging about the numbers was they would do these the bombs or whatever, where they drop a whole bunch of episodes at one time and then they like throw it on prime time and stuff like that. But nobody's watching Cartoon Network now, and this is why a lot of these shows got pulled off of streaming too, is nobody was watching them on streaming. And that's
go look and see what they said about this show that got canceled.
All right, so they said it was about Braille's Thai American heritage. It was conceived as a fantasy adventure steeped in Thai spirits and mythology. According to Braille, the story follows a young boy confronting a life-altering illness who escapes into a mythic spirit world. A personal and culturally grounded narrative with clear thematic ambition. It had been in development for more than 2 years before being shelved.
Yeah, so basically, from my understanding, it's like he has a chronic illness in reality, the guy himself. So it was about basically accepting that sometimes, what's normal for you isn't going to be what's normal for everybody else, and that's okay. I actually am kind of bummed they're not doing this one, because I'm looking at this, and as long as it was legitimately what he said, and it wasn't like with an allegory narrative crap in there.
Right.
This one might have been good, and the art is beautiful, and I am kind of low key bummed about this, because I think I would have watched this one.
So this is where I deviate from And I
yeah,
get
this got me too.
so in the thread, Braley confirmed the cancellations. Again, it's coming from Cartoon Brew, and Cartoon Brew is reputable. They've been around for decades, right? A lot of the animation industry people read Cartoon Brew and contribute to it and leak stuff to them. So, but Braley confirmed the cancellations, stating the studio ultimately deemed the film commercially unviable for artists who have built careers expanding the emotional and aesthetic vocabulary of American animation. That reasoning is difficult to reconcile. No, it's not going to
really
make money.
not. That's business. I'm sorry. Okay, if you want to do it really bad, okay, you have this beautiful stuff and you want to do it, and you feel like, oh, it's your calling to do it, and you need to help with the aesthetic of American animation. Go get the money yourself and do it yourself. Because that's hard, right? I know that's hard. I'm just saying, y'all were like all big talkers about this stuff when it's not your money.
Yeah, that's and this is where we run into problems with the loving animation community. They basically think that you can wish multi-million-dollar projects into existence. And somebody who admires Walt Disney, okay, Walt was a tough nut. His brother was tougher than he was, and the only reason that shit got made was because they found a way to pay for it. And they
would personal risk to do so.
Personal risk, great personal risk. They almost lost the farm, literally almost lost his house a few times chasing art. And then in the middle of his career, Walt, there was a change. And you can see the change in the animation too, the change in the mindset, because they started to think more like, yeah, wouldn't this make a good theme park attraction? Or we could put this on the Wonderful World of Disney, or this would be, I mean, unfortunately, Iger took that and ran with it and, did, but they knew they had to pay for this stuff. The art just doesn't, this kind of expensive art doesn't just materialize overnight.
You can still get those. How'd they word it again? The aesthetic. Go back up to that comment again. How'd they word that again? You can still find your careers expanding emotional and aesthetic vocabulary in American animation. You can still do those things, but you're going to have to do them in the confines of projects that are commercially viable.
Yes.
Disney did all kinds of things, and he bet like everything on Snow White, and luckily that worked out. And that movie progressed the animation significantly and stuff. And you can do those kinds of things, but it's either you're going to have to make money, or it's going to have to be commercially viable, because otherwise you can't stay in business that way.
No, and that's what they have to understand. It's really easy to spend other people's money.
Yeah, they all wanna.
Like, I'm not sitting here trying to like blindly defend the studios because look, they're going to be greedy AF sometimes. They are. The house always wins, right? But if you don't have your own money and you're spending somebody else's money, and if you're spending somebody else's money, they need to see a return on that investment. And that's what they're going to tell you. And I know when we pitch stuff, it was the same thing. It was like they wanted to know, okay, beyond the story is great. Beyond the story, how is this going to make money? And it was basically merchandise. They want to know how something is going to merchandise. And they're going to look at this and be like, our kids going to play with toys of these characters. They look cool, but are these dolls going to sell, or are they going to wind up in Ollie's?
Mm-hmm. They're beautiful dolls. I mean, beautiful dolls. But the characters, I think I'm looking at the character designs. The character designs are just stunning.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good looking project. But
I'm not gonna lie. I think I don't know what kind of agenda they'd shove into it, because I'm sure they would. But I think this looks like it would have been something worth watching, in my opinion, especially when you're reading what the premise was. If you go back up, he tells you what it was. Go back up.
Yeah, it was basically about the...
It says here, back up. Okay, yeah. He says he's traveling to the world high spirits to cure himself just before undergoing a very scary, life-altering operation necessary to live. I can't speak. This was not a story about finding a cure so much as it was about learning to accept one's unchangeable circumstances with grace and realizing that a different life than expected can still be a wonderful one. It was a deeply personal story for me, as I was diagnosed with an incurable chronic illness at a young age. It brought permanent changes to my lifestyle. Not only that, but it would have been an honor to bring more Thai culture to the big screen. I think this one, knowing this person, I think that he would have made it allegories for other things. But
yeah.
The premise itself, though, is not a bad one. I think it's actually something that 10 years ago they would have probably jumped on for other things, because it's a good premise. I just think it's more of a him problem and a her problem, and an activism problem, and studios being afraid of that.
Yeah.
The activism might never have even shown up in the project itself, but they're known people that are out there doing it, and maybe the studios are just worried about backlash, worried about what they'll say, worried about getting into hauled in front of Congress. Who the hell knows? I mean, I'm bummed though, because I think it would have been something to see.
I think that we're going to see, at least in animation, because it's so damn expensive, we're going to see a lot of change. They're going to lean more into, I think, Japanese and Korean stuff, because there's an appetite for that now. We're not going to see these Cartoon Network, Steven Universe type shows, not for a long time, if ever again, and not from a major studio. If that kind of stuff gets made, it's going to be independent people making it.
Which you can do this independently.
Yeah,
you can do that. But I'm sure, because he was paid for Sony for 2 years, I'm sure the stuff doesn't get to stay with him either, unless they let him buy it back or revert it back. You know what I mean? They'll keep it.
It is so prohibitively expensive to buy your rights back sometimes, because it might be like, yeah, not only did we front you some kind of an advance or whatever, but also you have to pay back all the R&D time and the staff. We had 2 years of development, so that's millions of dollars.
This is kind of like the IEW thing that's going on now, that they're basically like, you have an idea. Now IDW is doing this thing where you have an idea and they'll carry it, you get a page rate and royalties, but they get to own everything.
Yes.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, and they're talking about like, hey, maybe they'll find another home, and you never say never. I mean, that happened with Nimona.
Yeah, that's true.
Where they shut down Blue Sky, but they had more done on that. I think they still had to go back and redo some of this stuff. And Nimona, I'm not sure it was on Netflix. It did well, streaming numbers, but you don't see like action figures or dolls or anything. You know what I'm saying?
I don't hear people talk about it hardly ever.
It was big for like 2 weeks, and mostly it was the She-Ra people that were excited.
Yeah, exactly. So. But this one, I'm honestly surprised. I mean, it was before K-pop Demon Hunter's success, but I'm surprised Sony hasn't come back around and been like, maybe we should give this one a second look. But they apparently are sticking by their decision not to do it.
I think they've got new criteria now, but they bring it up on Cartoon Brew. They said that Sony Pictures Animation has at times positioned itself as one of the more creatively ambitious major studios. If any studio were likely to champion a project like this, the one behind a globe-spanning hit like K-pop Demon Hunters would seem a natural fit. Instead, originality is embraced only when they align with existing commercial trends, such as the massive K-pop music movement, which is true.
There is a big there are a lot of Taiwan, you have K-drama, C-drama. There's also Taiwanese dramas that are pretty popular as well, but it's not to the level of the other ones.
This is interesting. In the comments, somebody said, this isn't a cultural thing. They said this decision to cancel a distinctly Thai-inspired film seems arbitrary when even Disney in recent years has celebrated other cultures.
I don't think it's a cultural thing either.
They think it might have been Raya and the Last Dragon might have actually had something to do with it, because that flopped. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Again, was with Sony luring these prestigious animation creators. Lauren Faust, they cancel something, string them along for years, and then pull the rug.
It's kind of shit, because then you keep them from doing projects that'll go forward. You keep them with you, and then they can't do something else. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so look, I'm telling you what, and this is my personal opinion, what I think is going on is the subsidized Steven Universe era of animation's over. I think some of the people who are associated with that era, unless they come up with something more commercially viable, I don't think they're going to get projects greenlit, and I think they're going to look to save money wherever they can, which means Japan and AI and yes, too. Yeah, that's another problem.
And I'm going to go back, but like, you hate everything. It's like, which is not true. I actually wish this was getting made. I actually would like to have seen this one. I would have watched this one. It looks beautiful and the story sounds interesting, and I would have watched it.
Yeah.
So there you go.
It's really interesting though, but yeah, Rebecca Sugar is apparently working on some other stuff. I think too, the one thing about animation and just in general with Hollywood is like these people announce these projects like years out, and I think it's either their agents or whatever, and then they never materialize. Like I'm sitting here looking at Amulet. Like how many freaking times was Amulet, the graphic novel series, how many times was that optioned? It was going to be like a Will Smith movie, and there's a big press release and the trade. Oh yeah, I got options. We get a movie, and it never happens, right? I think you're better off, honestly, waiting until like 2 months before the movie drops when it's actually done to say something about it. Because like it seems like half or more of what gets the green light in Hollywood never actually sticks a landing. It just
yeah,
never
and how much
happens.
money would Hollywood save if they would just stop greenlighting everything and then just like be really, really sure before they greenlight and then stick with what they greenlight? You know, unless some big unavoidable situation comes along.
Well, plus animation, it takes so damn long to do. So
they worked 2 some years on this just to get the story developed.
Just to get there.
And I don't think they even went forward with it. So.
And how many bosses did they have? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they go through executives. So one executive might have liked it, and then the next person comes in and they don't like it. So
that's true too.
Anyway, we're gonna wrap it up.
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.